Hi there. This is Dr. Lisa Song, and I am here live with you today. I hope you can hear me.
Hi there.
Here we go. Let's get started. There's a little lag between my Facebook Live feed. I'm going to turn off my sound here. So, hi, I am Holistic Mama Doc, founder of Healthy Kids, Happy Kids, and the host of the Thrive a Child Summit. I am a holistic pediatrician and a pediatric functional medicine expert. Today, I'm so excited to be here with you live to kick off a 3-part series on children's gut health. If you're tuning in and you're not familiar with who I am, you will soon get to know that I am passionate about children's gut health. Why? Because all health really does start in the gut, and the gut is the foundation for a thriving child. And that's really, why I started the Thrive a Child Summit, is to help you as parents and practitioners who work with kids understand how to help your kids thrive naturally, body, mind, and spirit. And that starts with the gut. So glad you're here. Please do share with me, your comments and, give me a little thumbs up or a heart. I'd love to know that you're here. Introduce yourself. If you have any questions about the gut, I'm going to try to answer as I go along. And if not, I will get to you at some point. We're going to have 2 more of these Facebook Lives. So today we are talking about foundations for a healthy gut. We're going to talk about the gut-brain connection and the gut immune system connection and how that affects your child. We're going to talk about why it's so important to start life with a healthy gut microbiome. And how to establish a healthy gut microbiome in the first place for your child. And we're going to wrap up with a really important topic that I get a ton of questions from parents about, how do I pick the best probiotic for my child? So that's going to be where we wrap up. And then next week, hopefully you can tune in again next week, same time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hi, everyone. Hey, Angela. I know I'm going to be seeing you soon, hopefully. And Stephanie and Alyssa and Carly and Joe, Jamie. So glad you're here. So next week, we'll be looking at a little bit of a deeper look at what can happen if your gut actually does get disrupted. What happens if your child develops a leaky gut, or something we call gut dysbiosis, or abnormal bugs in the gut. And we're going to look at some of the conditions that it causes, take a deeper dive into what leaky gut is, what gut dysbiosis is, how do you tell if your kid has a leaky gut, how do you test for it? How do you treat it? And what are the steps to healing your child's gut? Because it's absolutely possible. And finally, on Wednesday, December 13th, we are going to wrap up with how healing the gut can heal your child of chronic illnesses. We're going to take a deeper look at different conditions like eczema and asthma and ADHD and anxiety, constipation. We'll see what we have time for, but we're going to look at different conditions and how the 5R program to healing your child's gut can really help us move forward in that direction to healing and thriving children. So I have a question here from Christina. Please talk about gut health for babies. And absolutely, today is all about foundations. That starts with babies. And I have a question from Joe that you're celiac, you're still working on repairing yourself while trying to build gut health for your 4-year-old and 2-year-old. So we'll talk about the foundations of how to start off in life with a healthy gut microbiome. And then be sure to tune in, Joe, next week, because we're going to take a little deeper dive into how we think about leaky gut for kids and how we address gut dysbiosis in kids. So similar for adults, but some nuances and some tweaks there. So are you guys ready to dive in? If you're ready to dive in, give me a thumbs up. If you have any friends that you know who could benefit who aren't on this, be sure to share it to your page. Let them know. We're going to go, for as long as we need to, and to answer your questions and get down the basics. So, all right. So let's talk about the gut-brain connection. Many of you have heard about the gut-brain connection. Hi, guys. And really, what does that mean for our kids, right? The gut has a direct connection with our brain, right, through the vagus nerve, our parasympathetic nervous system, and it's a 2-way communication, right? Our brain communicates with our gut, and our gut communicates with our brain. All of those awesome neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine, when they are produced appropriately, help us to feel calm and happy and motivated and pay attention in class and be able to sleep well. All of those are actually made by our gut. Actually, the vast majority are made by our gut lining. So when your kids are having behavioral issues or attention and focus issues or sleep problems, sensory issues, you really want to look at the gut. And I have kids come in and parents who come in to consult with me, and they'll have various kind of neurologic or psychiatric or developmental issues. And I'll say, well, you know what, let's take a look at the gut. Let's do a stool analysis. Let's see how you're digesting and absorbing. Let's see what your gut bugs look like. Let's see if you have any evidence of leaky gut. And they'll look at me like I'm crazy sometimes, saying, well, I don't have any gut problems. Hey, Candace, I'm so glad you're tuning in. They'll say, well, I don't have any gut problems. I'm not constipated. I don't have tummy aches. I don't have diarrhea. But really, because we know that brain health and the intimate connection of the gut-brain axis is so important, I do look at the gut first and foremost. And we are right now facing this epidemic of anxiety and depression in our kids, in our teenagers. We're just on the surge of having teenage girls be faced with this huge crisis of anxiety and depression, and suicide is at an all-time high among our teens. A recent study that I just saw predicted that 1 in 3 teenage girls is going to be diagnosed very soon with clinical anxiety. We know that the gut microbiome and gut health is so intimately linked and connected with symptoms of autism or ADHD. And so some of the fascinating studies I actually want to share with you, because I just actually gave a gut brain conference in Florida, and the research is fascinating. So they found that probiotic supplementation in infancy, this is infants, I'm talking about like 3 to 6 months of age, babies, right? Gave them probiotics, and then they followed them for 13 years, right? Even without probiotic supplementation, and they controlled for various factors like antibiotics and diet and all that. And they found at 13 years of age, the babies that were, the teenagers who as babies were supplemented with probiotics in infancy had a significantly reduced risk of developing ADHD and Asperger's, which is fascinating. There also was a study looking at babies' temperament. Now, we think of babies' temperament as, well, this is just something they're born with, right? Babies are born with a certain temperament, and this is a temperament we have through life. But they found that probiotic supplementation actually was correlated with increased ratings of sociability and extroversion and pleasure on developmental scores. And when we look at cognitive performance, probiotic supplementation also was found to improve cognitive performance in some of the early childhood developmental scales at 2 and 3 years of age. So this is not to say that if you have not given your child probiotics and they're already in elementary school or middle school, that it's too late. It's never too late. It's just to underscore how important gut health is to our children's appropriate and optimal neurologic and psychiatric functioning. And then the gut immune connection, right? We do have an epidemic of what's called atopic illness, eczema and asthma, allergies, and autoimmunity is at an all-time high in kids. Many of you have heard me say that I do see many, many kids, unfortunately, with autoimmune illness. And I've seen infants, babies with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And I've seen, elementary school age kids diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So this is really, we are at a crisis of chronic health conditions in our children. And we need to understand what's at the root cause of this. And this is where functional medicine and integrated pediatrics has a huge role to play in identifying the root causes. And one of the root causes is gut dysbiosis and gut imbalance and leaky gut. So when we're looking at children with eczema and asthma, one thing that it's an older study, but it's still fascinating, and many subsequent studies have confirmed this finding, that when moms who are pregnant and during the 3rd trimester and while they're nursing were given probiotics. There's actually a specific one called Lactobacillus Rhamnosus. And this is not to say just take Lactobacillus Rhamnosus, but that was one that was studied. And in fact, as a side note, it was the same probiotic that was studied in that ADHD trial that I mentioned before. But when moms were given probiotics during pregnancy and breastfeeding, those babies had a significantly reduced risk of asthma, eczema, and allergies. And we also know that certain gut bacteria, certain dysbiotic organisms, certain organisms that shouldn't be in our gut, like Klebsiella and Citrobacter, these are all linked with an increased risk of autoimmunity. So if you have a family history of autoimmunity, we want to make sure that your child's gut is clean, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to develop autoimmunity if you have these bugs, but if you have this predisposition anyway in your family, looking at the gut, even before there are any symptoms, can go such a long way in preventing autoimmunity from happening. And really, just to underscore that when we have a healthy gut, we're going to have a healthy brain, right? We're going to have the best chance at a healthy brain for our children and the best chance at a healthy immune system for our kids. So let's dive in and really take a look at, how do we really establish and start life out with a healthy gut microbiome? And this would be the perfect time if you guys have any questions. I see Lance's question about real food bone broth. I'll look into that. I haven't tried that, but I love bone broth. And then Christina asks, is there a cry related to gut? Oh, that's interesting. I do think that a lot of babies, right, of course, they can't express that they have discomfort or that they have pain. And in fact, I see kids who are older that really maybe toddler year, right? 3-4 years of age, or even elementary school. And I do a stool analysis, and I find that they actually do have quite a bit of inflammation, and they're not complaining of abdominal pain, right? Tummy aches are not a concern for them. And I think, wow, how could they not have tummy aches, right? But then if you think, well, if this is their normal, right? If this is something that they've lived with for a long time, our body can, it's amazing how we can tolerate different levels of discomfort. So it is possible that, certain cries can be associated with gut pain. For sure, babies with colic, right? this excessive colic with excessive crying during the day, often associated with scrunching up, the gut or arching the back, really red in the face, passing gas can often help the symptoms. We do know that in those babies, when we look at their stool analysis, they do have higher levels of inflammatory markers, one called calprotectin in particular. So there's something going on with the gut in our fussy babies. And I've had babies, my baby sister, who's now, she's a grown woman, but she'll always be my baby sister. But she had baby twins, right? Little girls who are now 7 months of age. And one of them had quite a bit of fussiness, intense pain, gas, colic. And we were able to resolve that, by really focusing on her gut health, giving her probiotics. I actually flew out to see her and did acupuncture on the babies, but you can do acupressure points. We cleaned up her diet, and she had a really clean diet, but we took out some of the biggest known triggers, gluten, dairy, soy, eggs, nuts, and focused really on lean meats, lots and lots of vegetables and fruits, and healthy fats. And we were slowly able to add back some of the foods, right? So it's possible, right? Your babies, if they're colicky and fussy, they don't have to live with it. So in terms of starting out life with a healthy gut microbiome, why is that so important? Well, what many people don't realize is that what happens while you're pregnant as a mama, right? What happens during the prenatal stage, what happens during labor and delivery, and what happens in that first year of life really sets the foundation for a healthy gut microbiome in that baby and child, and later, adolescent and adult, for the rest of their life. The adult gut microbiome, right, what your baby's gut is going to look like as an adult, is really pretty well established by about 1 to 3 years of age. And it's really difficult to change the composition of the gut microbiome later in life. It's not impossible. So please, if you're listening, it's never too late. You don't want to give up hope. It's just a little harder, and we just might have to do a little bit more work, right? So this foundation in the prenatal stage, I mean, I would love it if all moms, had great preconception and prenatal counseling so that their guts were in perfect, or I should say, in awesome order, right, while they're pregnant and heading into labor and delivery. But, we do want to really recognize and try to identify what are the factors that go into establishing the baby's gut microbiome, whether healthy or not, in that prenatal stage and in that postnatal stage. Okay, let me see. I'm going to get to some of these questions here. I've recently gone through H. pylori treatment. How soon should we run a GI map test to make sure he doesn't have it? That's a great question. Sam asked this question. H. pylori is a bacteria that some docs will say is what's called commensal or not so abnormal in kids. I think, of course, if kids are having symptoms, absolutely, we want to take a look at that and treat. And H. pylori, as you're probably aware, is very challenging to completely eradicate. So at what age would you do GI map testing? I don't know. I mean, if your son is having symptoms, I might check now. If your son is doing great and not having any GI or other health concerns, no eczema or asthma or anything like that, then it's probably fine to wait. I never think it's the wrong timing to look at what your gut is doing, right? I mean, just to do a little kind of even spring cleaning, yearly, just make sure that your gut is in good order. It doesn't necessarily require testing, but doing these as an adult, I think just in general, doing periodic cleanses, detoxes, whatever you want to call them, right? We're really cleaning up the diet, really focusing on whole, unprocessed foods, anti-inflammatory foods, gut and detox supporting supplements, making sure that we're really focusing on proper lifestyle, like getting enough sleep and reducing stress and focusing on mindfulness, getting good exercise. When you want to do testing, that kind of varies. Chantal asked, my daughter's very thin, but has a bloated belly all the time. No discomfort really, but big. Sometimes big bloated bellies can be a sign of different bacteria in your gut that are fermenting the foods and causing like IBS type symptoms. If she doesn't have any symptoms, it's probably it may not be of any concern. But, when I see a baby who's really bloated and really gassy and having some discomfort, then I do look at, what's called FODMAPs foods, FODMAPS, because the FODMAPs foods are the ones that get down and really kind of ferment with particular bacteria in your gut and can cause that gassiness and that bloating and sometimes diarrhea, sometimes constipation. Liz asked about Nordic Naturals probiotic gummies. I'm not familiar with them, but at the very end, I'm going to go through all of the different probiotics options. Well, not all of them. I'm going to go through, how you might choose a good probiotic so you can look for yourself. And I'm going to do a little show and tell and show you some of my favorites. They're kind of sitting right out. I pulled them before we started the talk. Okay, so let's dive in. You guys still with me? I definitely want to make sure that you stay with me and ask any questions if you're starting to fade or want me to switch topics, and let me know. But I love all the hearts, I love all the thumbs up. Let me know that I'm on the right track and this is what you want to keep hearing. So the prenatal factors, right? What happens during pregnancy? How does our pregnancy affect our baby's gut microbiome? Now, it used to be thought that really the most important thing was how your baby was born, right? That being born vaginally meant that, hi everyone, meant that, if you had a healthy vaginal microbiome, the baby would get seeded with that and, start off with good colonization of the baby's gut, and that the baby's gut was sterile at birth, right? No bacteria, relying on the first exposures to whatever, microbiota are around, whether it's the vaginal microbiota and also the, or by C-section, if it's a skin microbiota, which doesn't belong in the gut. So Alma asked, will this be available to watch after? I don't have much time left to watch. Absolutely, this is going to be recorded. I'm going to keep it up so you can look at anytime you want to. And I'm also going to post it on YouTube as well. So just depending on, I know not everyone does Facebook all the time. Okay, so we used to think that baby's gut was sterile, but now we know that actually mom's intestinal bacteria can be transmitted to the baby. We've found DNA fragments of mom's probiotics and gut bacteria in the placenta, right, in cord blood. So that's fascinating, right, that it actually can get through the placenta. And even if it doesn't necessarily seed the baby's gut, we do think now that there probably is some priming going on, right, for the baby's gut and for the baby's brain and immune system, right, that gut brain and gut immune system connection. And so we want to make sure that mamas, while you're pregnant, that your own gut is as healthy as possible, that your own gut flora is as healthy as possible. And in fact, if you have the time to do, a stool analysis before you try to get pregnant and optimize your gut health, not only, will it likely be easier to get pregnant, but your pregnancy will be so much healthier, and your baby will actually have a better chance at being as healthy as possible in those early years of life. So what can mamas do? Eat a diet that's rich in phytonutrients. All of those colorful fruits and vegetables all have a role to really supporting our gut health. Eating fermented foods. I love fermented foods. I get those early on. Some will say anecdotally that the foods that they really ate and craved while they were pregnant are the foods that their own kids like, as toddlers. I don't know if that's true. It's not really panning out with my kids. Although, when I was pregnant with Kenzie, I just craved fruit smoothies, and it really, not much meat at all. And it's interesting, she's not really that much of a meat eater right now. But my son, I just could not get enough steak and hamburgers and chicken and, pork and you name it. So, and he's totally a meat eater. So anyhow, so making sure that your gut is healthy by eating the right diet, eating fermented foods, taking a probiotic supplement, not only, for the reduced risk of eczema and asthma, if you have that in your family, but also we found that prenatal probiotic supplementation for mama does increase probiotic levels in your baby's stool. So it absolutely can make an impact. Of course, if you are obese, you want to try to get to a healthy level, because that also has been linked with infant gut imbalances, dysbiosis. Again, dysbiosis, if you're tuning in, means just an abnormal balance of all the different bugs in your gut. And smoking. Please, I hope you're not smoking anyway, but smoking for sure is linked with infant gut dysbiosis. The other prenatal factor that, I talk to moms about if I have the chance, when they're in the office while they're pregnant, is stress. Really, like, what mama isn't stressed, right? I was stressed when I was pregnant with my first. I was even more stressed when I was pregnant with my second, right? You're not going to have no stress, but we really want to see if we can get out of this fight or flight kind of deer in the headlights mode that so many of us are running on day in and day out. And why is that? Specifically when it comes to the gut microbiome, we found that maternal stress actually does alter mama's vaginal microbiome. Incredible, right? That stress alone will reduce the colonization in her vaginal canal of the good bacteria and then directly impact the baby's gut, right? So practicing mindfulness and stress reduction while you're pregnant is so important. If you do that, you will, reap so many rewards, and your baby will too, because oftentimes when our mamas are living on adrenaline and living in that stress state, our babies are kind of like feeding off of that adrenaline too, right? And so we don't want baby and mama to be wired. We want to be in this kind of relaxed, parasympathetic rest and digest state, not in the sympathetic fight or flight state. And what do? I have some apps that I love right now. My favorite app is called Insight Timer. Insight Timer. It's a totally free app. And why do I love it? Because well, I don't have much time, as I'm sure none of you do. So I literally, my favorite app, it's meditation. It's 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute meditation. Anyone has 5 minutes. Don't ever say you don't have 5 minutes to just sit and meditate. Before this Facebook Live, I just sat with it, for 5 minutes, because I thought, well, why not start off the Facebook Live, really calm and relaxed. And so it's just called a 5-minute breathing meditation. I'm actually looking here on my app, and I'm going to show you. It's this one. I hope you can see this. It's by Megan Winkler. And I love that you can actually get all of these, these meditation guides, these gurus and experts from all over the world, and be able to benefit from them for free. All right, so what are some of the postnatal factors? Well, mode of delivery we know affects the gut microbiome of the baby, whether your baby was born by C-section or vaginal delivery. I'm sure that all of you are aware of this, that when babies come out through the vaginal canal, they get the opportunity to be colonized by that good vaginal microbiome. When babies are born by C-section, typically we find that that baby's gut microbiome is going to be colonized more with skin bacteria, right? Skin bacteria from mama's belly and from the surgeons, right? And again, skin bacteria doesn't belong on the gut. So, it's amazing. We have a microbiome. I mean, many of you are familiar with this term gut microbiome, right? Our gut bacteria, our probiotics. We have a gut microbiome like almost in like every part of our body. Our eyeballs have a different gut microbiome. Our eyeballs have a different microbiome than our skin, than our gut, right? So, we want not just, what we think are the right stuff. We want what really belongs there, right? There is a process called vaginal seeding, where this is experimental, not a ton of big studies, but some really promising results looking at if you are, going to have a C-section, let's say it's a planned C-section, and, either, you don't want to, you may not have an OB who's supportive of a VBAC or whatever concerns that's not possible. There are swabs. You can actually just literally take a swab, and get some of the vaginal flora on there and swab the baby's mouth and all over the body and the anus to see directly. So that actually does have a lot of good promise. And then type of feeding, right after birth really does make an impact. Breast milk, I mean, we know breast is best. And I totally get that, for whatever reason, some moms may not be able to nurse. They may not have enough breast milk. There may be other factors, right? So this is not to feel guilty at all if you haven't breastfed or you're not exclusively breastfeeding, but really every bit does count. So even if you can early on, get some banked breast milk or just, pump a little bit to get out, it will help. So breast milk actually does have probiotics. It also has awesome prebiotics, these human milk oligosaccharides that have so many great benefits for the gut. Other factors like lactoferrin and glutamine and essential fatty acids, right? Just so many factors that promote a healthy gut microbiome and a healthy immune system and a healthy nervous system. And many formulas now are actually trying to replicate the benefits of human breast milk. So they're getting closer. They're actually adding in human milk oligosaccharides, and they've had the DHA and the ARA, right, the essential fatty acids in there for quite a while. But now it's a relatively new thing. And some of the European probiotic formulas, which I think are actually higher quality, in fact, than the ones we have here in the States, have prebiotics and probiotics in them. So, feeding, the mode of feeding, that's a very, it's a personal decision. It's your decision to make as a mama and what works best for the mama baby diet for you. But, do your best. And, as mamas, if you do have to take antibiotics, whether it's in the pregnancy period for a UTI or a sinus infection, or during the perinatal period, right as the baby's born, if you have group B strep, antibiotics are recommended for group B strep prophylaxis. I would never say don't take the antibiotics. I will say when you're pregnant, if you have a sinus infection, there may be some things that you can do from an integrative standpoint, right? From a holistic standpoint, using things like homeopathy and herbal medicines and essential oils and acupressure points. They're totally safe and great to use, and can be very, very effective to try to avoid antibiotics. But you want to work with, a knowledgeable practitioner, right? You don't want to, you want to just go in, aware that there are some great integrative options that may be helpful, but sometimes antibiotics are needed. And of course, if you have group B strep, I would always want to make sure that you're getting the appropriate prophylaxis, working with your midwife or your OB to do that, because the risk of group B strep meningitis in the babies is just not worth it. But if you do take antibiotics, you want to make sure that you take probiotics immediately, and also give your baby probiotics if they were born by C-section or had group B strep prophylaxis given, during your labor. I do think that probiotic supplementation early on, and I start in the neonatal period, right when they're newborn, it can really significantly reduce the risk of getting thrush, right? That white coating all over the tongue and the mouth and back of the throat, or nipple thrush where you just have sharp shooting pains every time you try to nurse. Yeasty diaper rashes in the baby with this kind of raw, kind of pimply red rashes on the bottom. So much yeast nowadays, and so much of it is resistant to nystatin. And so babies and moms are being put on diflucan. There are so many natural ways to treat thrush. So really, if you have the option, finding a holistic practitioner work with you, because long-term diflucan, can absolutely have impacts on the liver for yourself and your baby. And we want to heal, from the inside out, right? We want to not just kill the yeast, but we want to really make sure that the gut microbiome is healthy moving forward, so you have fewer chances of yeast recurrence, right? So what about the factors after the babies are born, right? If, let's say, in the ideal scenario, you were pregnant with a really healthy gut, no problems with yeast, no food sensitivities. You were taking probiotics and eating fermented foods and a really clean diet, really trying to be mindful and exercise regularly, born vaginally, breastfeeding. Well, even then, right? Even then, the gut can get disrupted, right? I mean, we see this, right? We see kids early on with eczema or, these asthma patches, right? Usually starts red cheeks and then, kind of red elbow creases, red ankles, right? We see kids who start to wheeze early on with reactive airway disease, even in infancy, right? So there are many factors, even once babies are born, even if you try to set the stage as ideally as possible, that can disrupt the gut balance and lead to gut dysregulation, right, and lead to what's called a leaky gut and gut dysbiosis. So, antibiotics are a big factor, right? And again, there is a time and a place for everything. I will say once I started using a more kind of integrative pediatric toolkit, right, incorporating homeopathy and herbs and acupressure and essential oils into the practice, I have had to prescribe antibiotics in so many fewer cases. And, it's so rewarding. But sometimes antibiotics are needed, right? You just want to try to make sure that when they're needed, they really are needed, right? But antibiotic use early in life, in infancy, in that first 6 months of life, and even beyond, has been linked with a higher risk for asthma and eczema in kids. Same thing with antacids, right? We have this huge number of kids being placed on Zantac and other antacids for reflux or for colic, right? And that, if you would like to have a whole Facebook Live on reflux, baby reflux and colic, give me a thumbs up, write it in the post, let me know, because that is one of my, oh gosh, I mean, it's one of the issues that I'm really passionate about. That babies are put on Zantac like it's nothing, and it's really affecting their future health if we don't also figure out how to optimize their gut health moving forward. So early Zantac use, and even Zantac use in pregnancy, right? Antacid use has been found to be associated with an increased risk for eczema and asthma later on. And there's so many things we can do from a holistic pediatric standpoint, a pediatric functional medicine standpoint, an integrated pediatric standpoint, to help that baby resolve their reflux and colicky symptoms without necessarily having to resort to Zantac, or at least minimizing its use and getting them off as soon as possible. Other factors are diet, right? Our standard American diet, right? Many of you have heard of the SAD diet, right? The standard American diet, which I'm sure is not just standard in America, but in most countries now. But it's all of these processed foods and, pesticides sprayed on food, and the artificial chemicals and the dyes and that's in our diet, and the sugar, right? The sugar consumption, right? If you look at the statistics of the huge increase in sugar consumption over the decades, and how, American food manufacturers have really altered, the sugar level and the taste of our foods, so that we are craving now the sugar, right? Kids don't know what real food tastes like, a lot of them, because they're just having sugar, 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 right? So they don't know how awesome bitter flavors can be, how awesome sour flavors can be, how awesome spicy flavors can be. And so, if we're trying to move back to really supporting our gut lining, we really are trying to move back to as clean a diet as possible, whole foods, colorful foods full of phytonutrients and antioxidants, avoiding all of the artificial stuff, especially if your children have attention or behavioral problems or sensory issues. If there are in Europe, right, in the European Union, there are warning labels on foods that contain artificial dyes and preservatives that this food may cause behavioral and attention problems in your child. Right? I mean, isn't that huge? I mean, it's on the warning labels. And in fact, there are different regulations for what, companies like Mars and Nestle can put into their candies and their foods in Europe than what they can put here in America, right? So we need to demand, here in the States that the standards become stricter, right, for our kids' health, for our health. But yes, artificial colors, dyes, preservatives. If you have a child with attention problems, absolutely. I have a blog post on this too. It's one of my first blog posts, but it's one of the things that we can do something about and move towards, right? For kids and adults, sleep, right? This lack of sleep. We have an epidemic of sleep debt going on in our kids, and sleep is one of the biggest reasons for inflammation in kids and adults, right? We have to get this inflammation down. We have to prioritize sleep. We have to make it a priority, even if it means on certain nights, your kids might be asleep either shortly before you get home or even before you get home, and you spend the weekend, playing with them and having all of that quality time. But preserving sleep. The other kind of catch-22 is that when our gut is dysregulated, right, most of the serotonin in our gut, right, this is our feel-good hormone, about 80 to 90% is actually made by the gut, and serotonin is the precursor to melatonin, which is our sleep hormone. So when our gut isn't making enough serotonin because it's dysregulated, we're not going to have enough melatonin. So sometimes we have to work on the gut first in order to get that quality sleep, and then that quality sleep then translates into supporting a continued healthy gut. So hope that makes sense. And then stress, right? Kids absolutely are stressed nowadays. Kids are in that fight or flight mode. They're on the go, right? You have to slow it down. I am so guilty of this sometimes. I mean, I am a mama. I mean, I get it. And I get that we need to have our kids doing something while we're working or while we're, having to do whatever other responsibilities we have, but really trying to have some days that are preserved for downtime, not having to schedule an activity all the time. It really does make a difference, for our kids to be able to have some of that downtime, and also to be able to be good with that downtime, right? To be able to know that being, quote, bored or having nothing to do is actually one of the best things in the world for them, right? And I, work on teaching, I talk at every visit with my kids now that I see about mindfulness and meditation, and I show them the apps, right? Calm, CALM, is one of my favorite apps for kids to use. There are a couple of books that I'll refer them to. Dawn Huebner, Dawn Huebner. She was on the Thriving Child Summit twice, right? I love her so much, and she's awesome. She's a child psychologist who really helps kids learn cognitive behavioral techniques for stress reduction and different issues in really easy to use books. And I should have pulled them out there. It's right behind me. But she has a book called, she's a whole series of books called What to Do, right? This whole series, What to Do guides for kids. One of my favorites is What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And her new book for older kids is called Outsmarting Worries. So awesome techniques, awesome tools for kids to learn how to, manage their stress and anxieties and their worries with cognitive behavioral techniques. And she's got other great books too, like What to Do when your brain gets stuck, what to do for like OCD type stuff, what to do when your temper flares. One of my favorites is What to Do When You Grumble Too Much, right? Getting out of that cycle of negativity, and What to Do When You Dread Your Bed. So some really great books there, right? So what do? We know all these factors. So how do we keep our kids' gut microbiome balanced, right? What are the foundations there? Oh, Amanda, can you tell us her name again? This is Dawn, D-A-W-N. Last name is Huebner, is actually how she pronounces it, but it's spelled Huebner. So Dawn Huebner. And Candace, yes, I think Candace, you were the one who introduced me to her book, so I'm so grateful. And it is the Calm, C-A-L-M app. On the iPhone, or not, I mean, I have an iPhone, but whatever phone you have, the Calm app. I do also really like Headspace, and I also really like Insight Timer. That's what I said I use right now, right? And yes, FX medicine, let's talk about reflux. I would love to talk about reflux anytime, right? Because again, there's so many things that we can do. There was a time, you know, before I started up my practice back in 2005, there was a time where my husband and I, we had taken off the 4 kids to really kind of like get our yayas out, right? And go traveling around the world. And in that year, when I had this pause in practice, I went from Zantac never being used. I would never have thought to prescribe ranitidine for babies with, you know, quote, colic or reflux, to coming back in that 1 year with almost every other week, I felt like a meeting with a drug rep who was saying, oh, now Zantac or ranitidine is approved for, you know, infant reflux. And it was just being given out like candy, right? And so, so yes, that is a passion of mine. Okay, so how do we help our kids thrive, body, mind, and spirit? How do we keep their gut microbiome balanced, right? That's what we really, really want to make sure that we do for optimal health, optimal brain function, optimal immune function, optimal hormone functioning, right? I didn't talk about the gut endocrine connection, but there is also an intimate connection between our gut and our hormones. And so for all of you listening who have older kids, right, who have teenage girls with really bad PMS or horrible cramps or PCOS, right? Please look at this functional medicine approach before just going on the pill, right? I'm going to post this on Facebook tomorrow, but this article that I just read yesterday just had me, I mean, my jaw literally dropped, because the birth control pill, we know that there are a significant proportion of women who on the birth control pill, their mood will be affected. They'll be depressed or be anxious. And so this was a long-term study looking at women, adolescent women and adult women on the birth control pill over a course of several years, and found that there was a higher risk, an increased risk while on the pill, especially in the first, couple of months of being on the pill, of suicide attempts and actual suicide. I mean, this is shocking, right? This is so disturbing. And that risk was higher in teenage girls. And so, doing everything we can, to try from the holistic standpoint. There's so much we can do for PCOS and PMS and dysmenorrhea. So not looking at the pill as, something to just be taken lightly, which it unfortunately is by many physicians and many people who just don't know better, right? If you knew that there was an increased risk for this in your kids, nobody would say, go ahead, let's try it before trying anything else, right? So, all right, in terms of looking at our diet, for our kids, I've mentioned this before, but really, switching to as much of a whole foods, phytonutrient dense diet as possible, lots and lots of colors of the rainbow, making it a game, really looking at trying to eat organically as possible. And I know, organic can be more expensive. It is getting more and more cost effective, though, to eat organically, at least eating organic, those foods that are on the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen list. Why is that? Well, pesticides, Roundup, right? This is another one of my huge kind of pet peeves and passions to educate people. But Roundup, or glyphosate, right? It was patented initially as an antibiotic. So, I mean, what are we doing every time we give a food laden with pesticides, right? It actually is killing a lot of our gut microbiota, right? It's actually literally harming our gut flora. And so it's not to say that, it's a balance, right? It's not to say that you you have to 100% eat organic, but if you can, please do. And please, the foods that are most heavily sprayed, choose those organic, right? Glyphosate, it's been shown to directly cause leaky gut. It's been shown to cause gut dysbiosis. We're finding glyphosate in not just the foods that we're buying at the grocery store, but we're finding traces of glyphosate in baby foods, in formulas, even in vaccines. There was a study done, I think it was a couple of years ago now, measuring the level of glyphosate in vaccines. So, we really want to be mindful of what we're putting into our kids and aware, just educated and informed, right? And this is where, you as mamas and papas and, practitioners who are looking at medicine in a different way, you should really congratulate yourself, right? Because, and I do have more and more of my colleagues, my conventional colleagues who are, opening their eyes and getting aware. So it's not that it's not that all pediatricians are unaware. It's just that sometimes we as parents and, have to go in and educate, right? And just talk and share. I love when parents come and share information with me. But we as parents have to be our children's best advocates, right? We have to be our kids' cheerleaders. So you just want to go in with some knowledge and awareness, right? And whatever you do. And then, it's not just about what we're avoiding in our diet. It's also about what we're trying to keep in and get into our diet to feed a healthy gut microbiome, right? Oh, Liz wrote that Costco is the way to go to find good prices on organic foods. That's absolutely true. I mean, Costco has some awesome values on organic produce. Trader Joe's. I mean, if you have Trader Joe's near you, Trader Joe's, we find a lot of great produce. I mean, I will say, I don't want to be down on Trader Joe's, but sometimes the produce doesn't seem to last as long, as when I buy it at the farmer's market or Whole Foods or elsewhere. But anyhow, yes, absolutely. And, Robyn points out that, the Dirty Dozen from the Environmental Working Group is the list of the most heavily sprayed foods that you want to buy organically. And the Clean 15, also by the Environmental Working Group, lists the foods that are the least heavily sprayed, right? So those you can feel great, that those are foods that you can eat and not have to worry about them being organic, right? The list doesn't change too much from year to year, but sometimes it does change. Like on the Dirty Dozen list, like almost always you're going to find bell peppers and strawberries and kale. On the Clean 15 list is usually avocados and bananas, right? So in terms of the foods that are going to have an even better kind of bang for the buck, great impact on our gut microbiome, apart from the phytonutrients, nuts and seeds, right? So we want to have foods that will increase butyrate production in our gut. Butyrate is a short chain fatty acid that helps to support and promote the health of our large intestinal lining. And so nuts and seeds can increase butyrate producing bacteria colonization, especially pistachios. So if you love pistachios, by all means, have pistachios, put them in your trail mix, have pistachio butter, right? I don't think I've ever had pistachio milk, but I bet that'd be tasty. Danielle writes, organic bananas taste so much better. I mean, I have to agree. I just think the flavor of organic, when with the pesticides, right? They cause the plants to not have to be as stressed, right, when confronted with slugs and bugs and other things that are trying to attack, right? But it is in these it is in this struggle to survive, right, that our fruits and vegetables produce some of the most important nutrients for us. For instance, looking at broccoli, right? Broccoli is so good for us, contains great sulforaphanes and DIM, diindomethane that helps to detoxify and promote healthy estrogen levels. But in plants that are, when they looked at organic broccoli versus non-organic broccoli, the non-organic broccoli had significantly lower levels of sulforaphane and these awesome chemicals, right? So there, even though, there's some foods that might be okay to eat organically from a spray, non-organically from a spray standpoint, it is true that very likely the organic version is going to be richer in these nutrients, right? And we really want to make sure that our food is as nutrient dense as possible, especially when, I've seen a couple of questions about picky eating, right? Especially when it's our kiddos are picky, we want to make sure that whatever we put into the mouth is packed with as much nutrients as possible, right? Anna Anu writes, well, have you ever been able to reverse extreme picky eating in kids by healing gut dysbiosis? I would say one of the number one things to look at for picky eaters, well, a couple of things, but zinc, checking zinc, looking at zinc deficiency. I actually wrote it wasn't even a blog post. It was just a quick little picture that I wrote the top signs of zinc deficiency on and posted it, and it got a huge number of comments and shares. I had no idea it was going to be that popular, but it just goes to show you how many kids have signs of zinc deficiency. But that is one of them. If you go to my Healthy Kids, Happy Kids Facebook page, you can see that. Or if you're part of the Thriving Child Summit, if you guys here are part of the Thriving Child Community private Facebook group, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see who's on that group. Give me a wave, give me a happy face, give me a heart. And if you're not, part of our community, the Thriving Child Community Facebook group, it's an awesome community. I am amazed and just so grateful for the community. It's, I moderated. I don't have as much time. So glad you guys are on it. I don't have as much time as I'd like to be on it and post, but the knowledge, right? This collective knowledge and this collective enthusiasm and this collective, desire to teach each other and support each other in helping our kids thrive naturally and, helping our kids, thrive with, an integrative approach is so incredible and heartwarming to me. And I'm so grateful to be part of that group and to be able to continue to offer that. And so if you want to be part of that group, all you have to do is search for Thriving Child Community in the Facebook search page, and you'll find the group. It's open to the public. I just have it's considered private just because I have some questions just to make sure that the group is a group that would be totally appropriate for you. Shayna, I don't know. It says you've locked up on my computer. Anyone else? I'm sorry. I don't think I'm locked up here. I still see myself kind of waving my arms around and talking. And my internet connection is okay, but hopefully you'll get on soon. Again, this is all going to be recorded, and you'll be able to listen to it after, even if you miss some of it, okay? All right, so moving on to, another component of a healthy gut. Prebiotics, right? We want to get all those good prebiotics. What are prebiotics, right? Prebiotics are fermentable fibers and resistant starches that feed all of those awesome, good gut bacteria. Shayna, I'm glad you're up. So prebiotics have, some of the prebiotics include onion, garlic, chicory root, Jerusalem artichoke, legumes, plantains, soaked grains. I mean, they all have, prebiotics in them. So prebiotics absolutely can help support your gut lining. The only caveat I would say with prebiotics is sometimes prebiotics can make people and kids even more gassy at baseline. So if you have gas or you kind of tend towards diarrhea or you have irritable bowel syndrome, you want to avoid prebiotics because the prebiotics can also feed the bacteria that are kind of promoting and fermenting this tendency towards gas and bloating. And then, of course, last but not least, fermented foods, right? Fermented foods, awesome. You want to try to get in fermented foods early if you can, right? As early as you can, because those tastes, there's this sort of, it really is kind of a golden opportunity between that first and second year of life when your kids are starting solids, as long as they don't have any sensory issues, and, to introduce as many foods and a variety as possible, right? Why do I say that's a golden opportunity? Because what happens when kids turn 2, right? They start developing their own preferences and asserting themselves and really needing to gain that independence. A totally normal phase, right? But it's sometimes what we call being picky, right? And then moving towards that. So if they have a wide variety of foods to choose from, and even if they narrow, they're still going to have a wider variety, right? Couple of questions on zinc supplementation. I do recommend, if you can, have your practitioner test your child for a zinc level, a red blood cell zinc and a plasma zinc level, because you can get a little zinc. You can get too much zinc. It's hard to do, but you can get a little too much zinc. But that being said, there's a liquid zinc by Pure Encapsulations that's pretty tasty and easy to give. I also think that food-based sources of zinc, right? Pumpkin seeds are really rich in zinc. Beans are really rich in zinc. Shellfish is really rich in zinc. Chicken, dairy, if your child can tolerate dairy. Okay, but fermented foods, you can learn to make fermented foods. You can make your own yogurt. If you're dairy sensitive, then you can have a coconut yogurt or almond yogurt. I don't like to do a ton of soy yogurt, but kind of mixing it here and there. Kefir, again, if you're sensitive to dairy, you can do a coconut kefir. That's delicious. Kombucha is another drink that some kids love. That fizzy flavor, right? It gives you a little bit of a kick. You can get the alcohol-free version. And then things like miso soup, sauerkraut, real pickles like Bubby's pickles, kimchi. My daughter loves kimchi, but she likes the radish kind. It's a little bit more a little bit crunchier, right? So if you can get those fermented foods, and I mean, even just a teaspoon of kraut juice, right? It's going to go a long way in getting in all those good gut bugs. Okay. And Liz, yes, your coconut kefir. Kevita is one of the brand names. Kevita. It is delicious. I love the mango flavored one. So, try a variety, fermented foods. But that's going to be one of the best ways. I do think, there are going to be some children who are sensitive to the histamines in fermented foods, but for the most part, even with that, they could tolerate maybe even a little bit of kraut juice. But getting this fermented foods, they're going to pack so much more bang for the buck in terms of colonizing your gut microbiome than a probiotic supplement, right? But, that being said, not all kids love to, have fermented foods. And sometimes we might need to have extra probiotic supplementation, right? We might need even more after we've taken antibiotics, or if we've had, big emotional upset or stress, because we know that's going to change our gut microflora. If we've had, if we've gone on vacation and we've just not eaten as clean, as we normally do, right? So I'm going to share with you my guide to choosing a probiotic. And I'm also going to, after we're done, I am going to share a link. I know many of you have this already, but I have a free guide to choosing your child's probiotics, like a quick and dirty little infographic that's going to have all the information that we talk about right now. Okay. So Jennifer asked, you mentioned that you wouldn't do soy. You're not a fan of soy products. It's not that I wouldn't do any soy. I eat soy. I love tofu. We eat edamame. We have soy sauce. It's just that, I think in our culture, we've just had so much soy. A lot of people, when they're going dairy free, they replace everything with soy milk, soy yogurt, soy cheese. And so it's just in moderation. And it can have some phytoestrogenic properties when eaten in higher quantities. And of course, most of the soy is GMO. So we want to make sure that it's absolutely organic when we eat it. Okay. All right. Anu asked, I thought zinc tastes metallic when you've had enough. That's something called the zinc tally test or the zinc challenge test. I think it probably can be more reliable in adults. I think it's really hard for kids to really do that. If you have a child who can really, is attuned and in tune, with their body and their taste, then yeah, I would try it and see. It certainly would be a non-invasive way to try it, right? Liz asked, do you like making non-alcoholic shrub-type drinks with apple cider vinegar as a probiotic source? So Liz, I'm going to be totally honest with you and say that I have not made my own probiotic drinks. I wish I were more of a DIY kind of mama, and I envy all the mamas out there who are doing all of that. I think it's so cool, but I can't say, to be totally honest, that I have done that. Okay. thrush, I'll write a separate post on thrush because that's such a big thing. But, for babies and mamas with going through thrush, probiotics are critical. Coconut oil rubbed onto the nipples and to the baby's mouth, it can be very effective. Same thing with calendula oil they have anti-yeast properties, right? And Liz, no shame, just a thought as an easy one to make. Thank you for being understanding. And if you wanted to share with me how you make that, maybe even in the comments afterwards when you have time, I will go try it, because I am super, super interested. And I'm sure my daughter would love to make it with me. Is cow's milk essential for a toddler? So this is really, I will say my kids don't drink cow's milk and they never have. Really, the reason that we want to give cow's milk is for the calcium and for the fat and for the protein, right? So if your children are getting other sources of that, no, I don't think that they need cow's milk. And in fact, so many kids are sensitive to cow's milk or have actual allergies to cow's milk that, I would say probably not. There was a question on raw milk. I do like raw milk better than pasteurized milk. And again, this could be really controversial too, but there are two main proteins in milk. There's the casein and the whey. By the way, I just want to say I'm loving the hearts, and I want to heart everyone back because it's been a long Facebook Live and you guys are still with me. So I'm really grateful. In terms of, and I know I tend to go off topic and talk really fast, so thank you. But with the raw milk versus the pasteurized milk, the two proteins, casein and whey, the whey protein is really what has most of the nutrients, right? And the glutamine and the antibodies, even the enzymes and probiotics. And so the casein is the more inflammatory part of the of dairy. And it's casein that many kids with eczema, asthma, autoimmune phenomena, other immune issues are sensitive to. And so in the pasteurization process, and any process that uses high heat, even if you blended your raw milk in a blender making a smoothie and you blended it really fast, that's going to destroy the delicate whey protein. So I do have some kids who are sensitive to whey, but typically it's the casein part. But the raw milk, it has more preserved casein, more preserved whey in it. It also tastes delicious, and you get the whole raw milk with the cream on top, and it is super yummy. But again, drinking down, 8 cups of milk, it's gonna interfere with iron absorption. It might interfere with other mineral absorption. So, there are some kids who are drinking so much milk and, more at risk for anemia. And so, I don't think drinking a ton is really a great thing anyway. My thoughts on A2 milk and can there be a link between dairy and neurologic issues? Yes, absolutely. And this is a little different than the leaky gut issue and the food sensitivity issue. So for some susceptible children, and this is especially true for many of our kids on the autism spectrum, casein, right, the protein in dairy, cow's dairy, and other dairy, and gluten, which is the protein found in some grains like wheat, barley, rye, kamut, and spelt, they can get converted into these opioid-like compounds called casomorphins and gliadomorphins. And these literally drug our kids' brains, right? Give them brain fog or silliness or spaciness. And so really high pain thresholds, right? There's some kids who, they just walk bam into a wall so hard and it's like nothing happened, right? So that's a different issue. And so absolutely there can be some neurologic symptoms associated with milk. And the question on A2 milk, so the idea behind A2 milk is there are some cows that have a different kind of casein, right? It's A2. And this is less sensitizing, causes fewer neurologic problems. I don't know. I mean, I have kids who drink it and seem fine with it. Although I don't have enough kids who I've taken off of dairy with improvements in their eczema or waking up, if they're autistic, or improvements in their wheezing or constipation that go on the A2 milk to know if that's any better. So, I'll for sure, let everyone know if I do find that. Okay. So now moving on to probiotics. You guys still with me? probiotics, right? When we choose probiotics, there are a couple of different key points, right? As I mentioned before, if your baby was born by C-section, or if you have taken antibiotics while you're pregnant, or your baby's formula fed, or your baby or child is taking antibiotics, you want to take a probiotic, right? Of course, you want to get in all those fermented foods, but I think giving more in the form of probiotic supplementation is a really good idea, right? And again, remembering that our baby's gut microbiome is pretty much set and established, in the adult-like pattern by around 2 years of age, right? So that means, what does that mean? When we're looking at probiotics, you'll often see that there's infant probiotics and regular probiotics. And so when you're babies under 2, you really want to try to use a more specific infant probiotic, because under 2 years of age, the composition of all the different bacteria is different, right? There's more bifidobacter species and different kinds of probiotics in there. After 2 years of age, remember I said that it's your baby's gut microbiome is going to have a more adult pattern. So once your kids reach 2, the whole family can get the same probiotic. I mean, that's what we do in our house. We all take the same probiotic. My husband, Kenzie and Bodhi, right? And myself, right? We just take the same one. So in general, when we're looking at a probiotic, also another principle is that we want to try to get as many different strains as possible. With all the different strains, right? There's different lactobacillus strains, there's different bifidobacter strains. We are finding so much evidence. I mean, almost every day you can look at different research journals, or even pick up the paper, right? Pick up the Times and see a different gut bug or different probiotics that have found to have different benefits, right? So we don't ever just want to have one. Remember I mentioned, with ADHD and with eczema, when moms and babies were supplemented with this particular probiotic called Lactobacillus Rhamnosus, that they had reduced risks of ADHD and eczema and asthma. Well, that is just one strain, but you never just want to give one strain, right? And you want to look at the number of probiotics in them, right? The number of colonies, right? You'll also see a number that says colony forming units, or CFU. And we want this number to be in the billions, right? There is a pretty tasty chewable probiotic out there that parents will sometimes bring and say, is this an okay one? I'll say, well, not really, because it has 1 million colonies in there. That's really, I mean, it's like candy, right? You might as well have your child have that as a treat if they like it, and then get more of a therapeutic probiotic in. Okay, so we're talking about billions. For most healthy kids and adults, we're looking at kids and children. We're looking at maybe 5 to 10 billion, maybe more, 10 to 20 billion, depending on what's going on. I mean, if you've had antibiotics, or there's any immune issues going on, autoimmunity, eczema, asthma, any neurologic issues, I might ramp that up to way more, right? I might be giving kids 50 to 100 billion, right? So that's where you do want to work with a functional medicine practitioner to try to guide that. But we want a lot, right? We want a lot of different kinds of probiotic strains, and we want a lot of number, right? And we want them to be live. Now, most of them are going to be refrigerated, but some of them are going to be not refrigerated and stable, but you want to make sure that you know that right off the bat. Most probiotics have something called inulin, or FOS, that's fructooligosaccharides. They have prebiotics in them because they're going to support the growth of the probiotics in them. But remember I said that sometimes prebiotics, if you have irritable bowel syndrome, can make you a little bit more gassy. So if you take a probiotic and all of a sudden you're really more gassy, your kid's really a lot more gassy, you're burping a lot more, it might not be that it's a bad probiotic. It might be that it's because your child would benefit from a prebiotic free probiotic. A little harder to find, right? But that can definitely be helpful. So I'm going to do a little show and tell, because I always get asked, well, okay, so which one? And in general, if you rotate probiotics, I think that's a great idea. Let me just pause for a couple of questions. So Liz just shared a recipe for a switchel or a shrub drink. I'm totally going to try that. From the Wellness Mama. I love the Wellness Mama, Katie Wells. she's a dear friend. And, I was actually on her Healthy Moms podcast earlier this year, where we actually did speak about gut health, but we also spoke about specific holistic pediatric things to do for ear infections and eczema and asthma. So if you haven't heard that and you're interested in those topics, check out her podcast. She's got such great information on her website and on her podcast. I'm sure many of you know her, but it's the Wellness Mama, right? Katie Wells, the Wellness Mama. So let's see. Jennifer writes, curious on what your take is on the new trend of taking activated charcoal for every GI illness. I feel like it probably wipes the slate clean, but many seem to be taking it for every GI disease going around. Charcoal is a great binder. What does that mean? It's going to absorb anything in your gut, right? So if you have food poisoning, in fact, my husband just 3 days ago, he just had these intense cramps and sweating, and he felt nauseous and didn't seem like a stomach flu. I said, it really, really seems like food poisoning. So I gave him a bunch of different homeopathics, and he took the charcoal, and literally, within hours, he was back to himself, wanting to eat a little dinner. So I think charcoal can be great. What we do want to know is that as a binder, it's not selective in what it binds. So if you have abnormal gut bacteria and you have, the abnormal microbial compounds and toxins that are being released that you want to absorb, it works great. But if you have a lot of food in there, a lot of vitamins or nutrients that you're taking, it's also going to absorb that. So it does need to be taken on an empty stomach, right? Away from food. For kids, you can give it with a little bit of food, but try to give it away from most of the food, at least like half an hour before or an hour after eating. This is something that we used, years ago when I was a pediatric resident in the emergency rooms, we would mix the charcoal, open up the capsule and put in a little bit of chocolate pudding, right? And then have them eat that. But does it wipe the slate clean? I think if you use it all the time and you're not using it for something called a die-off reaction, or using it to mop up when you're sick, I think it's probably not such a great idea. But using it as needed, I think should be fine. And then Amber, is colloidal silver safe for the gut? I think it depends on the colloidal silver. I do like the Designs for Health hydrosol colloidal silver. Because that's not going to get absorbed systemically. So, I think it does depend, but I think that colloidal silver can be great as an antimicrobial if you're trying to clean out the gut. Okay. I came on late. I'm not sure if you already addressed this. He's with probiotics. Oh, he's been constipated, right? Bowel movement once a week on probiotics and using magnesium oil. This is where I don't know, Michelle, if you read my post on constipation on the Healthy Kids, Happy Kids website. It's called Oh Crap. And it goes through some of the other things that you can try. But I think in this case, I don't know if he's already on dairy, but dairy is the number one food that has to come off when your kids are constipated. Sometimes even just a little bit, can make the difference. And if you go completely off and the gut gets regulated, then oftentimes you can go back to eating some of the cultured dairy. But I would look into acupressure. Acupuncture is awesome for constipation. That is really one of my highest recommendations when kids are constipated as well. Okay, so a little show and tell. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Maggie, I did talk in the beginning about the things to do for good gut health during pregnancy. So when this is done, just listen to the recording. It's gonna be up there. Okay, and let's see, any link between gut health and difficulty soundly sleeping in kids. Well, I did mention before that serotonin, which is made largely by our gut, is a precursor to melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. So absolutely there's a connection with that, but mouth breathing, hard to say, right? If he's snoring, it could be a matter of dentition. If you've listened to the Thriving Child Summit, Dr. Stephen Lin is a holistic dentist who is an awesome resource. He's got some great blog posts on his website about mouth breathing and snoring and apnea, and do kids really need braces? So that's Stephen Lin, Lin. He's an Australian dentist, but he's moving to the States here. Also, if you join the Thriving Child Community private Facebook group, he's also posted some great information. He's part of our community. And he actually, when people post questions and tag him, he actually does respond fairly quickly. And let's see, some other probiotics I'm going to show you right now. Liz, advice to getting kids off dairy when they're incredibly attached to it. We've tried milk alternatives. That's a tough one. I mean, dairy, I will say that dairy is a harder one to substitute. I feel like gluten is really easy to substitute. But dairy, if your kids love milk and cheese, sometimes it's just going off of it, unfortunately. And just saying, look, there's not going to be a great alternative. There's nothing that's going to taste like it, right? And so just for this time while we're trying to get healthier, we're just going to be off of it. Right. I wish I had better advice for you, but and sometimes too, when you're trying to switch milks, it's just literally, taking your glass of milk and just filling it with a little bit of almond milk and then mostly cow's milk, and then a little bit more proportion of that milk substitute as you go, right? So that they get slowly used to it, right? And for hiding probiotics, you can hide probiotics in food. I mean, you can mix it up with whatever they're eating as long as it's not hot food, right? You just don't want to heat up your probiotics. I had this one mom who was so clever, and so I've started telling other parents about this. She would actually make, get these dairy-free chocolate chips and melt them, in her double boiler, and then make these supplement chips. As the chips were cooling, she would just throw in some of the supplement powders and then make a giant kind of vitamin chip. I thought that was a great idea. Okay, so some of the probiotics that I love. Now, just know that I'm not showing every single great probiotic out there. There are some awesome probiotics out there. And by the way, I know that this has run over an hour and I'm going to stay with you, but I'm so amazed at how many of you stayed on with me and so grateful. I wish I could heart you guys right now, but but this is awesome that you guys are so invested in learning about this topic, and really staying tuned and figuring out how to help your child's gut, right? Because it is the foundation for optimal health. Okay, so again, there are lots of probiotics out there. I'm going to give you my guide, to download on choosing your child's probiotic. So even if you have a probiotic that's not one of the ones I'm showing right now, that's totally fine. Just make sure it fits some of the guidelines that I've given you. But one of my favorite lines is Claire Labs. It's Klaire, Claire Labs. They have a lot of different probiotics, but they do have here this, I'm going to show you this infant probiotic, right? This is a powder. Really easy to give. You can put it into their bottles of pumped milk or formula if you're giving them formula. You can put it into their baby food. You can put it on your nipples before you nurse. You can put it on your finger and have them take it off your finger. I hope you can see this. I know there's a glare there, but I'm going to put it a little bit closer. So the Claire Probiotic for infants. Okay, one of my favorite ones. Okay, and then remember I said once your kids get over 2, they can take the same adult probiotic as you. So we have some options here. Claire also makes a Therabiotic complete formula, right? This is for kids over 2, Therabiotic complete probiotic. It comes in different forms. It comes in this capsule form, okay? And also comes in a powder form. And the very same thing that's in the capsules, right, and the powder are going to be in the chewable probiotic, right? So this is what I take. My kids and we take this Therabiotic Complete Children's Chewable Probiotic. I will be totally honest, some kids love the taste, some kids don't, but it's super packed. Like one chewable tablet has 25 billion colonies of different bacteria. And I don't know if you can read this right here. It's got like 10 or 11 different probiotic strains in it. So ton of different strains, and I think it's pretty tasty. Okay, so that's the Claire. In terms of other probiotics, there is, I completely forgot to get the children's chewable one, but Metagenics. So Metagenics is also another great company, very reputable company, and they have a line of probiotics called Ultraflora Probiotics. So the two that I typically use are this one, right? The Metagenics Ultraflora Spectrum. This is one of those probiotics that does not have prebiotics. Remember I said if you're having bloating and gas, you don't want to use prebiotics. So this is the one without prebiotics in them. And then Metagenics also has a children's chewable probiotic. It's a great flavored one. Most kids absolutely love it. Super tasty. The caveat is that the Metagenics children's chewable probiotic only has 2 strains. So why only 2 strains? It is the 2 strains that have been studied to help reduce the incidence of fevers and upper respiratory infections during the cold and flu season. So it is a fantastic one right now in North America, where we're right in the middle of cold and flu season. But it's only 2 strains. It's not one they generally recommend for a general probiotic for optimal health, right? And then another brand that I think is awesome is the one by Orthomolecular Probiotics. So here we have Orthomolecular Probiotics. This would be for kids also who don't tolerate prebiotics, right? Because they don't have any FOS in them. And there's a capsule and a powder. So you have different options there. And this one, interestingly, this one doesn't need to be refrigerated. It's stable. So it's actually an awesome one when you're traveling, right? When you're going, Christmas vacation, the holidays, right? Traveling, to see family over the winter break. A lot of families travel. And so when you're traveling, you could take this probiotic because it's not refrigerated. Another awesome probiotic brand is called Pharmax. Right. So Pharmax, this is a chewable child one that I think is really good. So I'm just showing you this one. This one has, it's not super potent. It's got 4 billion colonies in it, and it's got 6 different strains. So, so that would be another one. This one also is fairly easy to travel with as well. I don't have a sample here with me, but I just tried an awesome probiotic by Bioceuticals. Now, a lot of people in the States aren't familiar with the Bioceuticals product because they are an Australian company, but they are available now in the States, and they're increasing their distribution. But their children's probiotic is it's like a orange flavor. It kind of tastes like if you maybe I'm dating myself, but it kind of tastes like orange tang to me. I don't even know if that's still around, but it certainly was around when I was a kid. But it tastes really good. So that's the Bioceuticals children's probiotic. And then they also have a line of more potent probiotics that I've been taking. I feel great on it. So lots of different options for you. There are also other options, right? So don't take this as you have to use these ones. It's just the ones that these are the brands and the ones that I'm familiar with. I've tried myself. I know that they work. I use them with my patients. I see that their stool analysis and their gut dysbiosis improves. So, so hopefully that helps. And again, I'm going to have a download for you guys too. Okay. So Holly asks, what do you think of glutagenics for Metagenics, or from Metagenics for kids? So we're going to talk a lot more, Holly, about this next week. I hope you can stay tuned next week, because next week, today was all about the foundations, right? How do you establish a healthy gut microbiome? How do you get your kids, kind of maintaining a healthy gut microbiome? Next week, Wednesday, December 6th, again, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to take a deeper look at what happens when your child's gut gets dysregulated. What happens when they have a leaky gut and gut dysbiosis? What are the conditions that can arise? How do we prevent leaky gut in the first place? And what do we do if they have a leaky gut and gut dysbiosis, right? So what are the steps? So we're going to really take a deep dive there. But glutagenics, it's a supplement that contains glutamine, it contains licorice in it, it contains aloe. It's a wonderful supplement. I think it's really great for gut healing. There are a variety of combination gut healing supplements to give, but for sure the glutagenics is a great one. And then I mentioned next week, hopefully stay tuned. If you're going to be there, give me a thumbs up. I'll be there and I will be talking about really a deeper dive into a dysregulated gut and your kids' health and what we can do. And then the next week, right, it's a 3-part series. So the next week on December 13 at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to talk even more deeply about, I'm so glad you guys are going to be there next week. That is awesome. We're going to recap the 5R program for leaky gut, and we're going to take a deeper dive at some conditions, right? Like eczema and asthma, ADHD, anxiety, constipation. Hi, Shayna. So yes, we're going to go deeper into how we might take an integrative pediatric approach, a pediatric functional medicine approach, use our integrated pediatric toolkit, and use the 5R program to heal our kids' guts so that we can heal whatever is going on with them, right? So I'm so grateful that you were here with me today. You guys hung in for a long time. So I know many of you either need to put your little ones to bed or need to go get some dinner on. I know that's where we're headed right now for dinner with my kiddos. So I want to remind you again, this video, if you didn't get to hear all of it or you came in halfway through a little later, it's going to be up on it's going to be recorded and up on the Facebook page, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids Facebook page, so you can listen to anytime. Feel free, absolutely share this with any parent that you think could benefit. I don't know which parent couldn't, but for sure share it. Let them know about the next 2 seminars that are coming up, the next 2 Wednesdays. And I also want to mention too, one of my great friends, my dear friend, Summer Bach, she's hosting a summit similar to the Thriving Child Summit. You're welcome, everyone. So the Thriving Child Summit, and her summit is called the Better Belly Project. And I was so honored to be able to speak with her, be interviewed by her, all about leaky gut and kids. So her summit is on, December 8 to December 14. And my talk, if you're interested in that one, is going to be on Sunday, December 10. It's going to be released at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, but it's going to be available for 24 hours. I'm going to post that link too on the comments section. What did I promise you guys? I promised you the link to my guide to choosing your kids' probiotic, and also the link to Summer's Better Belly Project. Okay. If I promised anything else or if you have any other questions, let me know. I apologize if I didn't get through all the questions here. I am going to go through once we're done and answer what I can. And Liz wrote another last resource, great acupressure how-to book for kiddos and grown-ups called My Tummy Hurts. I love it. Acupressure. So I do acupuncture in the office with kids, but acupressure is something that you can do at home with your children at any time. And Liz says it's by Molly Glasgow. I also do want to point out my dear friend who I think is the most gifted pediatric acupuncturist ever. Her name is Robyn Green. I'm fortunate enough to have her just, as my neighbor down in the South Bay, in Morgan Hill, and she has amazing acupressure resources for parents. She has a book out called Heal Your Child from the Inside Out, and is just an amazing resource. She was on the Thriving Child Summit 2 years ago in 2016, and she had a little guide for acupressure points for kids, and I'll see if we can get that uploaded too for you guys to download. Okay, so thank you so much, and I look forward to hopefully connecting with all of you guys again over the next couple of weeks. Make sure to follow me on my Facebook page, Healthy Kids, Happy Kids, so that you can keep up to date on all the latest events. I do hope to make this Facebook Live Wednesdays a recurring event. So if you are interested in that and would love that, let me know. Again, give me some thumbs up and let me know if there's any topics you want me to do some Facebook Lives on. If you guys want to show up, I will show up. And then also the Thriving Child Summit, I absolutely do plan to have another one in 2018. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be in the fall. And if you haven't already, I've mentioned the Thriving Child Summit private Facebook group. So absolutely join that, join our community, be part of our community of parents and practitioners around the world who are so dedicated to helping our kids thrive naturally. All right, so have a great night, everyone, or a great morning wherever you are, and I will see you next week. Bye.